going on, everybody? It's yours truly, Coach Mike Dub, here with another edition of your Commanders Weekly Recap here on the Lockdown Defense Sports Network. And we are pushing forward into week 4. I know I've been gone for a little while, but I thank you all for tuning in to the channel, locking in to everything that's been going on. And listen, if you have been following the NFL, if you have been following all of our content, then you know the season is up and rolling. We have so much to talk about. We have some things that have surprised us. We have some things that we're maybe not so surprised about. We have injuries. We have all kinds of things. We're going to dive into it going into week 4. Our Commanders are no different. We're dealing with the same thing that a lot of other teams are dealing with around the league: injuries, inconsistent performances, people not knowing what they expect. And then at the same time, on the other side of things, we're dealing with some pleasant surprises, some guys that have really stepped up and rose to the occasion, some, production from new faces here, all of the above. We're going to get into a little bit of all of that. So, of course, as always, we're going to talk about our last game, week 3 matchup against the Raiders. And then also we're going to preview our week 4 matchup against the Falcons. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. As I mentioned before, we always start out by reviewing our previous week, going over players of the game, just overall how it went. I wasn't able to do a preview for this game last week because I was out, but obviously we came up with the W. Big win over the Raiders, who, in my opinion, the Raiders weren't coming into the season. They weren't looked at as bad as many people thought. They were a team that we definitely had to keep an eye on. They got some weapons on offense, and even throughout the game, even though it was a lopsided victory in our favor, they definitely did show off some of those weapons. Genty had a few sparks. He couldn't get going as a whole, and it feels like that's kind of how his season's been going. But he had a few sparks and a few times where it looked like he could definitely break a big run. And then of course Trey Tucker, who had an outstanding, amazing game on behalf of the Raiders. That's something that we definitely want to tighten up is our secondary. But I say all that to say the Raiders had some sparks here and there, but overall the Commanders played a full game, a great game. Offensively, shout out to Marcus Mariota for stepping in, playing that quarterback position for injured Jaden Daniels, and we didn't miss a beat on offense. Some would say that maybe we had another element to our running game with obviously Mariota being a dual threat. He broke some big plays, had a fumble that was a little scary, but overall Marcus Mariota played amazing, played great. Our running backs played great as well. Debo had a few good plays on special teams. Jalen Lane, who I mentioned back, when he was first drafted as a player that was going to be a big part of our special teams. He's proven me to be right. As he returned to kick or returned a punt, I believe it was, for a touchdown, and also almost broke another punt before that one. So he was definitely a big playmaker in that special teams aspect. Defense played lights out as well. They kept, like I said, Genty and the other weapons from really going crazy. But overall, I give our player of the game. I'm going to show the big guys some love this time to Laramie Tunsil, the stalwart offensive tackle that we brought in this season to be just that. To protect the blind side of our quarterbacks, to really be that guy in the offensive line, and he did that and more this week against the Raiders. I believe both him and Josh Connolly didn't give up a pressure all game to Mariota. And then the running backs just had an amazing game. It was running back by committee. We saw, of course, the rookie do his thing, Bill, who had a couple of big runs, scored a touchdown. Even Rodriguez got going, but the player of the game had to go to Jeremy McNichols for that amazing run. But overall, the offensive line did an amazing job. Got to give a shout out to the big guys, Laramie Tunsil, who led the way. Amazing game for him. Player of the game, big win for the Commanders. And we're on to the next one. We get 24 hours. That's the rule of the game. You get 24 hours, win or loss, to reflect on the game. This is one that we're going to reflect on as a good win for us heading into week 4. But that's done. That's over. It's all about how we build. So this week, who do we have? We have the Atlanta Falcons. And in my opinion, Atlanta Falcons, this could be a good thing for us or a bad thing for us. Come playing the Falcons after the week that they just had last week, because they came off of an embarrassing loss to the Panthers where they were shut out, a division opponent. They played terrible. Penix did not look good overall. did not look like a good team. And they played a Falcons team who before then a lot of people were thinking of as kind of struggling. So the reason why I say this could be a good thing or that could be a bad thing for us is for two reasons. Number one, the Falcons could use that as fuel. They could be, chomping at the bit to get going and get this week going and prove that that week was a fluke. It could be just, they just can't wait to get out to the field and they might have had the most productive week of practice that they could have ever had because they want to erase that taste out their mouth. That's a possibility. And then the other possibility is that last week wasn't a fluke in that they are about to be on a downswing. Maybe teams have figured out how to make Penix struggle and how to keep that offense from having big plays. Maybe they found out, what the kryptonite is, for this Falcons team with their weapons and so forth and so forth. I don't know yet. We don't know, and especially the way this season is going, who knows? It may be a repeat of last week for the Falcons, or it may be the exact opposite, where they come out and they want to prove that last week was a fluke. Either way, it's going to be a tough game. If you know, then you know. Last time we played, it went into overtime last year. Great game. I think that was one of Penix's first starts, if not maybe his first start on a Monday night, I believe it was. Just an amazing game. Bijan went crazy. Drake London, I believe, had a good game as well. So it's always a close game when we play. Dan Quinn is returning back to Atlanta, a place where he coached in the past. Raheem Morris, on that team is going to be ready to go in the dome, cracking Sunday, 1 o'clock. The Commanders are a 2.5 point favorite. I like those odds. I would take that in my opinion, but it's not going to be easy. This is not going to be a game that's just they're going to roll over. Like I said, they had a bad week last week, so we're going to have to stand up and play well. And the biggest thing that's going to have to be play a part into this is the injury factor. Unfortunately, we are dealing with quite a few injuries. Our DBs are a little banged up. Of course, Will Harris was put on injury on IR earlier this week. Jaden Daniels, we're going to keep a close eye on him to see if he's available to go. In my opinion, I think he probably will be available to go. And then there are a few other injuries that we're dealing with as well. It's not looking like Terry McLaurin is going to be able to make it out there. So we're going to have our receivers step up. So this is the part of the season where you're going to have to start leaning on the rest of your roster. You're going to have to start leaning on, just playing overall good football in different aspects of the game. You can't be one dimensional. You have to mix it up because teams are going to start the game plan for that. And that's where, things like special teams played last week. We talked about that. Jalen Lane having a big play. He's going to get his opportunity on the as a receiver. Some of the other guys, McCaffrey's going to get some opportunities at the receiver position. So we're going to need those guys to step up. We're going to need an overall good effort. The defense has to continue to play well. But I think this is definitely a winnable game for us. And I'm excited because it's always a good game when we play the Falcons. If you don't believe me, just look at the tape from last year. So who are X factors? That being said, I mentioned Jalen Lane for multiple reasons. I've been waiting for him to have his breakout performance, and it's still early, and there's still time. There's been times where he's gotten opportunities, just hasn't been able to bring in the big play. I think he dropped a touchdown pass last week, or it was broken up one of the other last week. Early in this season, he also had a big play that was geared towards him, but he just couldn't connect with Jaden Daniels. So you see the potential. You see the fact that they're trying to get him worked into the offense. You see at times they try to get him the ball in space. They try to hit him with some shots. We just have to connect with him. So I'm hoping that this is the game that happens. Let this be your breakout game, young fella. We need you. I mentioned before Terry McLaurin. It's looking like he's probably going to be out, which leaves Debo. Noah Brown is also, I believe, on the injury report as well. So next man up, McCaffrey should have an opportunity to play a lot this week as well. But Jalen Lane is the guy that I look like that can have a big game. You just have to come through and connect on those targets with the quarterback, whether it be Mariota back there or Jaden Daniels. I do anticipate Jaden Daniels playing this week, but even if it's Mariota, either way, Jalen Lane, you have to, make some connections so we can get those things happen. And then also on the special team side of the ball, you're going to get more than one opportunity to, capitalize off of that. So hopefully we'll get that. And on the defensive side of the ball, Marshawn Lattimore and the rest of our defensive backs. I mentioned before, Trey Tucker went crazy on our secondary. What's been saving us this year has been our front seven, specifically our defensive line. We've been able to get pressure after the quarterback. Deron Payne has been amazing. Dorrance Armstrong has been great. Even last week, we saw Von Miller getting the action and finally get some sacks. It looks like he's still got some left in the tank. I need them to get after Penix. I need them to force turnovers, but most importantly, I need our DBs to be in position to get those turnovers. We have not forced a turnover yet this year, and that's not a good thing. And now, luckily, we are 2-1. Luckily, we are playing well, but we're going to have to continue that by forcing turnovers. And I think this is a perfect game to get that started. Like I mentioned before, Penix had a terrible game last week. So he may be put in a situation where he may try to do too much this week, or he'll be overly cautious this week. Either way, let's try to take advantage of that and take the ball out of their hands. Or if they are willing to be more cautious, let's keep everything in front of us and keep from the big plays happening. So the secondary is going to have to step up big. Marshawn Lattimore, obviously, with experience against Atlanta from his time down in New Orleans. I'm looking for him to have a big game against those receivers, keeping London and Pitts from going crazy. And of course, helping out in the run game if possible, or doing whatever we need to do to make sure that we neutralize that entire offense. All right. So that being said, what are our keys to win this week? I mentioned before, neutralizing that some of those receivers, but most importantly, their best player on the team is Bijan Robinson. We have to make sure that we neutralize him. Am I saying that we have to hold him to -3 yards, -4 yards total? No. All I'm saying is make sure that we keep him from running crazy on us. Let's make open field tackles when we can. Let's fly to the ball, get 11 hats to the football. Make sure that we keep him neutralized. He is a game breaker. He could take over this game single-handedly, one or two big plays, and it could change the whole trajectory of it. So let's make sure that we neutralize Bijan. Number two, let's force turnovers. Like I said, let's get on this turnover docket. We got to get some takeaways, give our offense more time, to keep the defense on their heels. Also keep our defense off the field. When you force takeaways, you put points on the board, you take points off away from the other team. It sometimes could be a 14-point swing, or maybe even more. When we're talking about taking away opportunities from another team and increasing our opportunities, we got to get better at forcing turnovers. And then also, finally, limit the big plays. I mentioned Bijan Robinson. We don't want any big plays from him. We also don't want any from the wide receivers. We don't want any from special teams, right? If they have to march us down the field, if they have to, sustain drives or try to get things going, then we have more of a chance to keep them out of rhythm. We have more of a chance to kind of keep them behind schedule. And I think that's where we get to positions to where it starts to get favorable for us. But when we give up big plays, fast scoring plays, busted plays, all those type of things, that's when it makes it a little difficult, and we want to keep that from happening this week. So neutralize Bijan, force turnovers, limit big plays, and I think we stand a pretty good chance. So let me know your thoughts. We're rolling on week 4. Let me know if you agree, if you disagree. Do you think the Commanders can pull out another win and move to 3-1, or will the Falcons step up big and recover from their terrible loss to the Carolina Panthers last week? Let me know. We're interested in hearing from you. As always, you can follow us all on our handles. Follow all of our media. Tell us about what we got right, what we got wrong, and we look forward to hearing from you again. All right. Without further ado, yours truly, Coach Mike Dub.